embarrassment, yes, an embarrassment, a living endorsement. The intention that you have booked was an intention that was overlooked.
It's about my sister who had a child of a mixed race, half-caste child, and it was just the reactions that, mainly from relatives and close friends, just a sort of negative reaction. It wasn't on, but now that child is 20, 21 years of age, and she's an absolute diamond.
Oh, Dad don't wanna know, he says, this is a serious matter. Too late to reconsider. No one's gonna wanna know ya. Our mum, she don't wanna know.
There was at a time when we were being castigated for being racist and all that, but that was the way that Lee writes his songs. It's not always completely clear.
I'm feeling twice as older. I'm feeling twice as older.
I think there's certainly a lot more depth to the band than it sometimes might appear on the surface. But even if you look at some of the early songs, I mean, Embarrassment, which on the surface is just a kind of great jaunty pop single, is actually a song that makes some very kind of personal points about racism and stuff. But I think their songs were kind of social vignettes. They just kind of captured the essence of certain aspects of life as they saw it around them.
The headmaster's had enough today. All the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next to school. Every turn that is the rule. Sits alone and bends his cane. Same old backsides again. All the small ones tell two tales. Walking home and squashing snow.
I was sleeping on the floor in Lee's flat in the Caledonian Road, and I was trying to write a song, and I was very specifically trying to write a song in the style of Ian Dury, and especially the songs he was writing then, which often sort of catalogues of phrases in a constant stream, And I was writing about my time at school. Pink Floyd had a big hit with Teacher, Leave Those Kids Alone, and it didn't really relate to me because I hadn't been to a public school where I was bossed about and told to sing, Rule Britannia and all that. I went to a school where there was absolutely bugger all going on. And the teachers were in the same boat, they dreaded having to go back as much as we did.
It's just gone noon, our fast monsoon on the banks of the River Nile. Here comes the boat, only half afloat. Osman grins a toothless smile.
They pioneered the pop video as a promotional tool and as an art form in itself. I think they were a hugely important band in the development of pop videos. They were very much them, but they were very inventive, very humour. I think a lot of the Madness humour is illustrated via their videos.
I tell you I didn't do it, 'cause I wasn't there. Don't blame me, it just isn't fair. You listen to their side, now listen to mine. Come think of a story, sure you'll find me sometime.
We always used to sit in a room together before the video was made, and we always come up with our crazy ideas. I mean, most of them were like jokes. Anyone who could think of them funny, it was like kind of millions of little Benny Hill sketches. And Dave Robinson had a team of people that could make them real. As in, you couldn't be Superman charging through one window, coming out the other, flying through the air.
So you just
demolishing
lie
a
on the top
building.
of a double-decker bus pretending to be Superman.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm a big boy now, or so they say, so if you'll serve, I'll be on my way. Box up
A very broad spectrum of people liked them for all kinds of different reasons. You had young kids who loved the dances, and you had older people who kind of, liked some of the kind of music hall elements of, there's always a kind of a music hall organ or a kind of, their music was very broad. It kind of, it eventually encapsulated quite a lot of English music, It was kind of a very broad, very interesting period. I had a really good time with it. And obviously we sold an awful lot of records, which is always good,
In 3 years, Madness had recorded 16 hit singles and 5 albums, and had their only #1 hit, House of Fun, in 1982. They were still in their early 20s and were already one of the biggest bands in Britain.
Stiff were releasing single after single. There was no gap. So as we finished one single, then another one would be out, so we'd make the video again and go round and round and round. There's always this thing, a lot of musicians say, oh, it's, you know, everyone thinks it's so glamorous. But it was, I mean, when you're on a label like Stiff, it was kind of bring your own sandwiches, you know, on tour with you. And, you know, even though we were looked after, it was, you know, it was pretty kind of, you had to be pretty hardy, really.
They weren't keen on touring, didn't like leaving Camden Town for any length of time at all. Didn't like foreign foods, you know. Even when they toured in England, they didn't like to be away for more than 10 days. You know, they had to be back and kind of refill their Camden requirement, whatever it was.
It was that old rock and roll attitude of keep them on the road, you know, while it's going well, keep them working. And we just had this feeling, God, it's 3 years up the road and we're not seeing our friends, we're not seeing our family, who are we working for? You know, we started out to do this for ourselves, you know, to enjoy.
Being in the band, you know, it was like a 24-hour thing, you know. And, you know, I was writing songs. We were touring a lot as well. And also with the record company, and like, they really just push you, you know. They want to sort of milk everything out of it that they can.
No, I didn't push them at all. I suppose, you know, to a degree, there is a certain time for you, and you grow through that time. Particularly you could then. I mean, less nowadays, where there's much more media attention on a band, much quicker. It wasn't like, you know, you could drag Madness Screaming anywhere. They wouldn't go.
We were in Halligan's Heap rehearsal rooms, and I said, guys, I'm leaving the band. And there was a sort of shocked silence. And and that was it, really. Yeah, you know, we didn't really, you know, go into too much talk in those days about things. No.
I mean, nobody was happy with the arrangement, except Mike, probably. But he got married to a Dutch girl as well, and he wanted to do other things. And I think he felt that he had enough income and whatever it was time to do it. And he was a very strong and opinionated person. I did try and talk him out of it.
Yesterday's man, hang on to today, to sing in the old-fashioned way. It must get better in the long run, has to get better in the long run.
Soon after Mike's departure, the band parted company acrimoniously with Dave Robinson, and a failed attempt to run their own record label, Zarjazz, took its toll financially. Madness were still producing hit singles, but they were losing the creative energy that had held them together.
I first came across them when they signed to Virgin Records in 1984, which was, I guess, right at that sort of transitionary stage of their career. They were just getting over the departure of Mike, and it was still a very successful group, but there was a certain degree of self-reanalysis and reappraisal of what sort of a group they wanted to be.
Yesterday's man, hang on to today, to sing any old way. It must get better in the long run.
In the mid-80s, Madness struggled to recapture their old form. Some of the band wanted to bring in synthesizers to spice up their sound. The gang was over.
Mark and I weren't stupid, and we realised that, you know, from what they were saying, it's like, well, we want to split up the band, but we might be doing other projects maybe together. So really, it was, you know, like, OK, well, why don't you just say that you don't want to work with us? You know, why don't you just be a bit more honest? And we were just concerned that the name Madness shouldn't be used for any, you know, future modern projects. Just for quality control, really.
So how did you feel when they re-emerged?
As The Madness, I thought it was a cop-out, to be honest. Yeah, a complete cop-out.
Were you hurt?
I was hurt, yeah.
Mike and Woody, should I say left or... It was just a bit of a sour, it was a right sour time.
You know, that moment when Mike left was the moment when the band finished, really, and that should have been that. And we just stumbled on blindly down different alleys looking for a reason to stay together. And, you know, I mean, how old was I then? 1986. I was 25. So I was 25, so I was still a pretty young person. And I'd done everything that one is supposed to do in one's lifetime, and I didn't know what to do next, you know. So, it came as a great relief, as I think a lot of the band have said, when it finally finished, that you do have to go out there in the world on your own and find out for yourself, outside the castle walls, you know, what goes on in the real world, you know.
On the 8th of August 1992, the police phoned the British Geological Survey, and they said that people had been phoning in saying that there had been an earthquake in London. They had described some effects like heavy lorries passing outside. People were frightened. Tower blocks were being evacuated because people thought that the tower block was going to fall down. It was an intensity of about 5. When I told the police that I thought the cause of the disturbance was a Madness concert at Finsbury Park, they didn't believe me at first. And I got a phone call the next night from the police who said exactly the same felt effects had occurred. And so they did believe me after all. So, so my reputation as a seismologist still remains intact.
Hey, you! Don't watch that! Watch this! This is the heavy, heavy monster sound! The nuttiest sound around! So if you're coming off the street and you're beginning to feel the heat, well, listen, buster, you better start to move your feet to the rockinest, rock-steady beat of madness. One step beyond.
I mean, we'd been away for such a long time, and the warmth and enthusiasm from all these people was so overwhelming. I mean, it was like, I mean, I was absolutely in floods of tears when I hit the stage, and we went into the first song, and it was like, bloody hell, the whole park just went.
Madstock 1992 was such a financial success that the band repeated it twice more in 1994 and 1998.
You know, we were selling places out, great. But then it was, you know, you're sort of on a treadmill, the old status quo syndrome, maybe. I just felt that we should be a bit more courageous and write something new. And it was all very smooth, you know. I went over to Holland and said, Mike, you know, put the tulips down, I'm coming over.
The band released a new album, Wonderful. Although the singles were vintage madness, they failed to set the charts alight.
Can you remember his name? Whoa! Can you remember his name? Whoa! Will you remember? It's all over, Mike.